Hello everyone, today we are going to learn Chapter 9 From the Rulers to the Rule Types of Governments Part 2 from your Social Science textbook. In this video, I'll be covering each and every line from the chapter so you don't miss anything important. Make sure to keep your notebook and pen ready and take notes while watching. This will help you remember the concepts better. You can pause or rewind any time to write things down. So, let's begin. Democratic governments around the world. Democracy is the most popular form of government in the modern world. In this part of the chapter, we will see that there are different kinds of democratic governments. Before we get into the differences, we should know that there are some fundamental principles of any democracy. So today, democracy is the most common form of government in many countries around the world. However, not all democracies work in exactly the same way. Different countries have different kinds of democratic governments depending on their history, laws and constitution. Even though there are differences, all democracies follow some basic principles. These principles make sure that people have a voice in the government and that the government works for the welfare of the people. In the next sections, we will learn about these different types of democratic governments and the common principles they all share. Fundamental principles of democracy. Equality in a democracy means that every person has the right to be treated equally. It also means that everyone should have equal access to facilities like education and health and that everyone is equal before the law. So, in a democracy, every person is equal. No one should be treated as more important because of their religion, caste, gender, language or wealth. Equality also means that everyone should get equal opportunities such as education and healthcare. It also means that the same law applies to everyone. Whether a person is rich or poor, famous or ordinary, everyone is equal before the law. Freedom in democracy means that citizens have the right to make their own choices and express their opinions. So, freedom in a democracy means that every citizen has the right to make their own choices and express their opinion. For example, people can choose their education, career, religion, or the leaders they want to vote for. They can also share their thoughts and ideas without fear, as long as they respect the law and the rights of others. This freedom allows people to live with dignity and take part in the country's development. Representative participation means that every person has a right to choose and elect their representatives. This is done through the process of elections. Elected representatives become a part of the legislature. So, representative participation means that people do not make laws directly by themselves. Instead, they choose and elect representatives through elections. These elected representatives speak and make decisions on behalf of the people. After being elected, they become members of the legislature where they make laws and discuss important issues for the country or state. Universal adult franchise grants every citizen that is above a certain age the right to vote to choose their representative. So, universal adult franchise means that every citizen who is above the voting age has the right to vote. In India, every citizen who is 18 years or older can vote, regardless of their religion, caste, gender, language or wealth. By voting, citizens choose the representatives who will govern the country. Fundamental rights of a citizen such as right to equality, right to freedom of speech and expression, and right against exploitation are all provided and protected in a democracy. So, in a democracy, every citizen is given some fundamental rights. These are basic rights that are protected by the Constitution and cannot be taken away without following the law. Some important fundamental rights are right to equality, that is, everyone is treated equally, and right to freedom of speech and expression. People can express their thoughts and opinions freely, and right against exploitation, which means no one can be forced to work unfairly or be treated cruelly. These rights help people live with freedom, equality, and dignity in a democratic country. Independent judiciary ensures that every citizen's fundamental rights are protected and that laws are followed by the citizens and also by all the parts of the government. So, an independent judiciary means that the courts and judges work fairly without being controlled by the government or any powerful person. The judiciary protects the fundamental rights of every citizen. If anyone's rights are violated, people can go to the court for justice. The judiciary also makes sure that everyone follows the law. This includes not only the citizens but also the government. If the government breaks the law, the courts can take action. It is useful to remember that even these fundamental principles have evolved over time. For example, India provided universal adult franchise, meaning the right to vote in elections to all adults from the very beginning of the Indian Republic in 1950. On the other hand, in Switzerland, women got the right to vote only in 1971. So, these democratic principles did not develop at the same time in every country. Different countries accepted them at different times. For example, India gave universal adult franchise, that is right to vote, to all adults right from the beginning of the republic in 1950. That is, every adult citizen had the right to vote from the very start. However, Switzerland gave women the right to vote only in 1971. This shows that democratic rights have evolved gradually over time in different countries. Clearly, the above principles or ideals, not all democracies are able to put them in practice. But equally clearly, it is important for the citizens to keep these ideals in front of them. Ideals are perfect goals or values that people try to achieve, even if they cannot always achieve them completely. In this chapter, democratic ideals are the important principles that every democracy should follow, such as equality, freedom, justice, and voting rights. However, not every democratic country is able to follow these principles perfectly all the time. Sometimes there may be problems or challenges. Even then, it is important for citizens to remember these democratic ideals. When people know these principles, they can encourage the government to follow them and help make democracy stronger. Different forms of democratic governance. Let us now understand the different forms of democratic governance around the world. So now that we have learned the basic principles of democracy, let us look at the different forms of democratic governments found around the world. Although all democracies follow the same basic principles, they are not organized in the same way. Different countries have different systems for governing the people. There are two main forms of democratic government: direct democracy and representative democracy. Representative democracy is further divided into parliamentary democracy and presidential democracy. In the next sections, we will learn how each of these forms works. Direct democracy. This is a form of democracy where all the citizens of a country are directly responsible for all the rules, regulations, and functions. They participate in all the decisions directly. In contemporary times, some kinds of this form are followed in a few countries like Switzerland. The limitation of this form of government is that it is very hard to carry out in practice, particularly in larger countries, just as we saw in our school story. If everyone becomes a part of the committee, then decision making and working on all tasks smoothly will be difficult. So, direct democracy is a form of democracy in which all citizens take part directly in making decisions. Instead of choosing representatives, the people themselves make the rules, regulations, and important decisions. Today, this system is followed only in a few countries, such as Switzerland, and only for some types of decisions. However, direct democracy is difficult to use in large countries. When millions of people have to take part in every decision, it becomes slow and difficult to manage. It is like the example of our school committee. If every student becomes a committee member, it will be very difficult to make decisions and complete the work smoothly. Representative democracy. This is the form of democratic government in which the people elect their representatives through universal adult franchise, just like in India. In this form of democracy, the people do not directly govern, but the government is always accountable to the people. Accountability. Accountability in democracy means that the government is answerable to the people who have elected them. So, accountability means that the government is answerable to the people. In a democracy, the people elect the government through elections. After being elected, the government must work honestly and for the welfare of the people. If it does not do its job properly, the people can question it and choose a different government in the next election. So, the government is responsible to the people because the people have elected it. So, representative democracy is a form of democracy in which people do not make decisions directly. Instead, they elect representatives through universal adult franchise, that is, the right to vote to govern on their behalf. For example, India follows representative democracy. Every adult citizen has the right to vote and choose representatives. After being elected, these representatives form the government and make laws and decisions for the country. However, the government must always work for the people and answer to them. This is called being accountable to the people. Elections are an integral part of representative democracy through which people can express changes in their choices as well. To accomplish this, elections happen in regular and fixed intervals of time. In India, we have general elections every 5 years, while in the United States of America, they occur every 4 years. So, in a representative democracy, elections are very important because they allow people to choose their representatives. Elections also give people a chance to change their choice. If people are not satisfied with the government, they can vote for different representatives in the next election. To make this possible, elections are held at regular and fixed intervals. In India, general elections are held every 5 years, and in the United States of America, general elections are held every 4 years. Regular elections help keep the government accountable to the people. Don't miss out. As we stated in the beginning, democracies have evolved over time and so have their characteristics. Even today, there are a lot of differences in the functioning of these democracies. It is useful to remember that when these countries adopted democracies, they may not have had all the principles of democracy as we understand them today. For example, effective universal adult suffrage in the UK happened in 1928 and in the USA by 1965. As we learned earlier, democracy has changed and improved over time. As democracies developed, their features and principles also changed. Even today, democracies in different countries do not function in exactly the same way. When many countries first became democracies, they did not have all the democratic principles that we have today. One example is universal adult suffrage. Suffrage means the right to vote in elections. So, universal adult suffrage means giving every adult citizen the right to vote without discrimination. Different countries gave this right at different times. For example, in United Kingdom, effective universal adult suffrage was achieved in 1928, and in United States of America, effective universal adult suffrage was achieved by 1965. This shows that democracy is an evolving system and different countries accepted democratic rights gradually. In this table, you can see that different countries established democracy in different years. For example, USA became democracy much earlier in 1787. India became a democracy in 1947 after independence. Nepal became a democracy much later in 2008. This shows that democracy did not begin everywhere at the same time. Different countries adopted democracy at different periods in history. Most of the democracies today are representative democracies, but every democracy functions differently. Here are the two forms of representative democracy. So today, most countries in the world follow representative democracy. In a representative democracy, people elect their representatives and the elected representatives govern the country on behalf of the people. However, not all representative democracies work in the same way. Different countries have different systems for forming and running the government. There are two main forms of representative democracy. One is parliamentary democracy and presidential democracy. In the next section, we will learn how these two forms are different. Parliamentary democracy. In this form of government, the members of the executive are also part of the legislature. For example, in India, the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers are also members of the Parliament. Now, let us understand parliamentary democracy. Before that, we need to know two important words. Legislature, which is the law-making body of the government. In India, the Parliament is the legislature. Executive, is the part of the government that runs the country and implements, that is, carries out the laws. The Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers are part of the executive. In a parliamentary democracy, the members of the executive are also members of the legislature. This means that the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers are members of Parliament. They take part in making laws as members of Parliament and also run the government as the executive. The Council of Ministers are accountable to the legislature and continue working as long as they have the confidence of the legislature. In India, the Council of Ministers can continue working while they have confidence of the Lok Sabha. So, in a parliamentary democracy, the Council of Ministers is accountable to the legislature. This means the Council of Ministers must answer to the legislature for its decisions and actions. The Council of Ministers can continue running the government only if it has the confidence, that is, support of the legislature. And what does confidence mean here? Here, confidence means support or trust. If most members of the legislature support the Council of Ministers, it can continue as the government. If the Council of Ministers loses the support of the majority of the legislature, it cannot continue as the government. In India, the Council of Ministers must have the confidence of the Lok Sabha. As long as the majority of the members of the Lok Sabha support the Council of Ministers, it continues to govern. In this form of government, people elect the legislature but not the executive. Selected members of the legislature become ministers. So, in a parliamentary democracy, people do not elect the executive directly. Instead, they elect the members of the legislature, that is parliament, through elections. After the election, some of the elected members of the legislature are chosen to become ministers. Together with the Prime Minister, they form the executive which runs the government. So, in a parliamentary democracy, people elect the legislature forms the executive. This is how the government is formed in India. Presidential democracy. In this form of government, the executive works independently of the legislature. The president is elected by the people. The president does not need to have the confidence of the legislature for his or her position. So, this is just opposite of parliamentary democracy. In the presidential democracy, the executive and the legislature are separate. They work independently of each other. The people directly elect the president through elections. After being elected, the president becomes the head of the executive and runs the government. Unlike a parliamentary democracy, the president does not need the confidence, that is, support of the legislature to govern the country. The president continues for the fixed term provided by the constitution, even if the legislature does not support every decision. So, the main difference is, in a parliamentary democracy, the executive depends on the legislature. In a presidential democracy, the executive works independently of the legislature. In some countries like India, states within the country such as Rajasthan or Kerala have their own governments, but they are not completely independent. They are still governed by a larger national government, the Union Government of India. So, in India, every state has its own government. For example, Rajasthan, Kerala and Tamil Nadu all have their own state governments. These governments look after the needs of their own states. However, the states are not completely independent. They are also part of one country, India. Above all the state governments is the union government, that is central government, which governs the whole country and deals with matters that affect all of India. So, India has two levels of government, state government which governs one state and union government which governs the whole country. Both work together to run the country smoothly. The different forms of democratic government have different structures. You can understand the basic differences from the table 9.1 on the facing page. So, we have learned that there are different forms of democratic government. Although all democracies follow the same basic principles, their government structures are different. They have different ways of electing leaders, forming the government and sharing powers. To understand these differences more clearly, let's look at table 9.1, which compares the governments of different countries. Before we understand these differences, let's first learn the meaning of some important terms that will help us read the table easily. What do these terms mean? Executive. The executive is the organ of the government which is responsible for implementing the law, but the process of its election is different in different countries. So, the executive is the part, that is, organ of the government that runs the country. Its main job is to implement the laws. The legislature makes the laws, but the executive makes sure those laws are carried out. For example, if a new traffic rule is made, the executive ensures that the law is followed by setting rules, giving instructions, and taking action when needed. And you should also remember that the way the executive is chosen is not the same in every country. In a parliamentary democracy like India, the executive is formed from the legislature. In a presidential democracy, the people directly elect the president who heads the executive. Legislature. The legislature is the body of the government which is responsible for making laws. It is known by different names in different countries. In India, it is called Parliament. In the USA, it is called Congress. In most democracies, it has two houses, the upper house and the lower house. So, the legislature is the part of the government that makes laws. Different countries use different names for their legislature. In India, it is called Parliament, and in USA, it is called Congress. In most democracies, the legislature has two houses, upper house and lower house. The members of these houses discuss and pass laws for the country. Upper house and lower house. In most countries, the lower house is elected by direct voting and is generally more powerful than the upper house, which is formed either by election or nomination. These houses are known by different names in different countries. In India, the lower house is called the Lok Sabha and the upper house is called the Rajya Sabha. So, many countries have two houses in their legislature, lower house and upper house. The lower house is elected directly by the people through voting. This means that citizens vote to choose their representatives. The lower house is generally more powerful because it directly represents the people and plays a major role in making important decisions. The upper house is not always elected directly by the people. Its members are chosen either by election, that is indirectly, or by nomination, depending on the country's system. The upper house also helps in making laws by discussing and reviewing them. And just like the legislature has different names in different countries, these two houses also have different names. In India, the lower house is called Lok Sabha and the upper house is called Rajya Sabha. Separation of power means that the three organs of the government, legislature, executive and judiciary, work independently and do not interfere in each other's functions. So, separation of power means that the three organs of the government have different jobs. These three organs are legislature, which makes the laws, executive, which implements the laws, and judiciary, which protects the laws and gives justice. Each organ works independently, which means it does its own job without controlling or taking over the work of the others. And they do not interfere in each other's work. Instead, each branch performs its own responsibility. Let's explore. Fill in the blank columns under country A and country B in table 9.1 given on the previous page by taking two different countries of your choice. Table 9.1 Different forms of democratic government. In India, the executive is the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. The legislature has two houses, the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. The Lok Sabha, that is lower house, is more powerful than the Rajya Sabha, which is the upper house. The judiciary is independent of the executive and the legislature. This follows the principle of separation of power. In USA, the executive is the president and the legislature has two houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives. Both houses have equal powers. The judiciary is also independent of the executive and the legislature. In South Korea, the executive is the president and the legislature has only one house, which is called the National Assembly. The judiciary is independent of the executive and the legislature. Australia, the executive is the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. The legislature has two houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives. Both houses have equal powers and the judiciary is independent of the executive and the legislature. So, in India and Australia, the executive consists of the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. In the USA and South Korea, the executive is the President. So, we can understand that different countries have different types of executive. India, USA and Australia have two houses, while South Korea has only one house, which is called the National Assembly. We can see that in all four countries, the judiciary is independent. It works separately from the executive and the legislature. This means the principle of separation of power is followed, which is an important feature of democracy. So now we need to choose any two democratic countries and complete the blank columns in the same way as table 9.1. We have to write who is the executive, what is the legislature and how does the judiciary function. Let's choose the United Kingdom and Japan as our two countries. In United Kingdom, the executive is the Prime Minister and the Cabinet. The legislature has two houses, the House of Commons and the House of Lords. The House of Commons is the more powerful house. The judiciary is independent and works separately from the executive and the legislature. In Japan, the executive is the Prime Minister and the Cabinet. The legislature has two houses, the House of Representatives and the House of Councillors. The House of Representatives is more powerful. The judiciary is independent of the executive and the legislature. Analyze the table and discuss among yourself the similarities and differences in all the examples. So now we need to study the table carefully and compare the information given in it. We have to look for two things, similarities and differences. Let's first look for the similarities. In India, the USA, South Korea, Australia, the United Kingdom and Japan, there are three main organs of government, the executive, legislature and judiciary. In all these countries, the judiciary is independent and works separately from the executive and the legislature. And differences, in India, Australia, the United Kingdom and Japan, the executive is the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers or Cabinet. In the USA and South Korea, the executive is the President. And in India, USA, Australia, UK and Japan, they have two houses in their legislature. South Korea has only one house called the National Assembly. In India, UK and Japan, the lower house is more powerful than the upper house. In the USA and Australia, both houses have equal powers. The exercise must have given you an understanding that different forms of democratic governments have different ways of formation, structures and functioning. Along with this, the relationships between the three organs of government also differs. But as we did in the beginning, some characteristics like equality, freedom and universal adult franchise remain the same in all democracies. So, from the table and activity, we learned that different democratic governments are organized in different ways. They may differ in how the government is formed. For example, parliamentary democracy or presidential democracy. The structure of the government, such as having one house or two houses in the legislature. The way the government function, how the executive, legislature and judiciary work. And also the relationship between the three organs of government, which can also be different. For example, in a parliamentary democracy, the executive is part of the legislature. In a presidential democracy, the executive works independently of the legislature. So, even though their systems are different, all democracies share some basic principles. They include equality, freedom, and universal adult franchise. These principles remain the same in every democracy. Let's explore. After studying the above examples, list the core principles of a democratic government. Based on your understanding, do the activity given below. You have to form a student committee in your school, make a plan and execute it in a democratic manner, ensuring that functions of the committee are all well defined. The election process of the committee members is democratic. So, now you need to apply what you have learned about democracy. Think about the core principles of democracy. They are equality, freedom, representative participation, universal adult franchise, fundamental rights and independent judiciary. Now imagine that your school wants to form a student committee, and you need to make sure that it is formed in a democratic way. First, the functions of the committee should be clearly decided. For example, the committee may help organize school events, maintain discipline, or represent students. Next, the committee members should be elected democratically. Every eligible student should have an equal chance to vote and choose their representatives. The candidate who receives the most votes becomes a member of the committee. So with this, we have completed the part 2 of the chapter From the Rulers to the Rule Types of Governance. I hope you found it easy to understand. If you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching. We will see you again in our next video. Bye bye.